Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Can I get everybody to have their seats? As most of you know, I'm Bill Browder. Welcome to the Magnitsky Awards 2023. As we have many people who have been here in the past, and there's a lot of also people who haven't been here before, and what I can promise you is the next hour and a few minutes, you will be blown away by the stories of bravery and strength standing up to dictators. The background to the Magnitsky Awards is that today is November 16th. November 16th is a day that Sergei Magnitsky was murdered in a Russian prison. And so we said to ourselves 9 years ago, how can we remember Sergei, honor him? And we came up with this idea of recognizing people who have done great things in the spirit of Sergei Magnitsky. And I just want to acknowledge a few people here tonight. We have some past Magnitsky Award winners in the audience. We have Jan Lipavsky, the Czech Minister of Foreign Affairs. We have Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe. We have Catherine Belton. We have Rupert Skilbeck. Jeffrey Robertson, KC. And last but not least, our MC for the night, James O'Brien. Before we do this, I just want to say one other thing: is there's 4 awardees who couldn't be here tonight because they're in prison. Vladimir Kara-Murza, who is one of our dearest friends, who helped in every way getting the Magnitsky Act passed, was sentenced to 25 years in Russian prison for treason. We're going to hear more about his story tonight from Yevgenia, his wife. We have Alexei Goranov, who is a member of the municipal government of Moscow, who at the very beginning of the war protested the war and is now sentenced to 8 years and is effectively dying in custody from his untreated medical condition. We have Alexei Navalny, whose name you probably all know, who is also, like Vladimir Kara-Murza, sitting in solitary confinement in a Siberian prison. And then we have Maria Kolesnikova, who is a Belarusian dissident who has also been sentenced to many years in prison in Belarus, standing up to Lukashenko. And the people here who are going to be awarded tonight are doing such significant things that in the past, as we've seen, they get noticed by dictators. And so the stories that you're going to hear tonight are going to be both moving, heartbreaking, and also inspiring. And so welcome and thank you for coming.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Apologies in advance to previous attendees of the Magnitsky Awards who have heard all of my jokes and anecdotes at least 3 times before. We're here this evening to recognize, obviously, the legacy of one man, but also the indefatigability of another and the extraordinary courage of an ever-growing cohort of extraordinary people. So a few words first, if I may, about the possessor of the indefatigability, our host this evening, Bill Browder. It's about 10 years since the producer of my radio show in London told me that we'd taken a strange phone call from a man who was very keen to have a private meeting with me, the presenter. Now, normally, when someone rings a radio station and insists upon a private meeting with the presenter, it means that they either have incontrovertible evidence that the moon landings never happened, or that they are in receipt of very important messages from another dimension via the medium of their toaster. But I met with Bill, and he told me a story that I couldn't quite believe. And at that time, no one knew his name, and no one knew the name of Sergei Magnitsky. Tonight, of course, Bill's contacts book contains the names and numbers of presidents and prime ministers, an extraordinary array of people here tonight. Previous laureates, previous winners of the Magnitsky Awards have gone on, of course, to win Nobel Prizes and sundry other honors. And that is all achieved. That has all been achieved in the space of a single decade. And tonight, I think we can all be proud to be part of that absolutely remarkable process. We really can. Something else that occurred to me this evening, which hadn't occurred to me before, was that we do not just honor the recipients of the awards, and the Magnitsky Foundation does not just recognize the recipients of the awards. It is, in almost every sense of the words, it's a family affair. You will this evening, if you are in the habit of checking out the name badges that we all wear, you will see Litvinenkos, you will see Karamazovs, you will and have in the past seen Magnitskys, the partners, the children, the families who are every bit as much a part of the incredible stories that we hear, although they are not the possessors of the names that make the headlines or the charge sheets or the prison cells. That's another thing I think that everybody here tonight can be very proud to be part of. The way the evening will unfold is quite straightforward. I will introduce to the stage the person charged with presenting the award. We have awards in 7 categories: Courage Under Fire, the Outstanding Political Opposition Figure, Outstanding Young Human Rights Activist, Human Rights Defender. This is a Lifetime Achievement Award tonight for reasons that will quickly become clear. The Outstanding Human Rights Activist, the Outstanding Journalist, and the Outstanding Lawyer. And in many ways, each recipient is matched by the caliber and the quality of the individuals selected to present the awards, because everybody here tonight is committed in many different ways to the same cause. And that cause is, of course, the resistance of oppression and the championing of freedom. In some cases, quite literally, freedom. We obsess a little in the privileged West about freedom of speech and freedom of expression, and desperately important though they are, when you compare them to actual freedom, as in the opposite of incarceration, you realize just how high the stakes are for many of the people that we will be both meeting and honoring in the room tonight. So with no further ado, I will invite first to the stage the gentleman who will present tonight's award for Courage Under Fire. Jan Lipavsky is Minister of Foreign Affairs in the Czech Republic. He's also the author of the Czech version of the Magnitsky Act, which allows, as most people here will know, the imposition of sanctions against foreigners and companies who have committed serious illegal acts. I don't know if he'll thank me for this, but when Bill first conceived of this mission and these awards, we were both living in a country where the governing party had recently set up an organization called the Conservative Friends of Russia. So the speed and the scale of the journey from that moment in 2012 to where we are today is a mark of how violently the world has turned. And this week alone, Jan's government in the Czech Republic have passed legislation very much in the spirit of the Magnitsky Acts around the world, which will freeze the assets of Russian plutocrats contained in that territory. So even as we speak, the ramifications, the repercussions, the ripple effect of Sergei's legacy is still being felt around the world. From 2017 to 2021, Jan was a member of the Chamber of Deputies of the Czech Parliament, and latterly, as I say, has become the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So please join me in welcoming to the stage a former winner of a Magnitsky Award, Jan Lipavsky.
Dear Bill, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are living in difficult times. when peaceful coexistence and democracy are under increasing attack across the world. Support for human rights defenders and democracy must therefore be encouraged more than ever. Democracy and respect for human rights is not given, but a daily struggle never completely over. It varies in intensity and in the price that the fighters are prepared to pay. Some even pay with their freedom, their health, or their lives. Their public and vocal support is therefore essential. We thank them profoundly for their commitment and show that they are not alone. Last year, I accepted the award for outstanding contribution to the Magnitsky Justice Campaign. Today, it is my gracious duty to announce that this year's recipient of the Courage Under Fire Award is Miss Evgenia Karamurza. Recognizes Evgenia's campaign efforts, which is at the forefront of the Magnitsky Justice Campaign. Evgenia, you have been advocating for your husband's release. We all know that Vladimir Karamurza was wrongfully convinced and imprisoned after speaking out against Putin and Russian invasion to Ukraine. So you are an incredible person. Your tireless fight to free your husband, who only spoke the truth, is admirable. And Russia is now the main current threat to peace and democracy in Europe. To be standing up to this danger means supporting those Russian politicians, civil society representatives and journalists who share our democratic values and are actively fighting the evil of Russian imperialism. Dear Evgenia, I really bow to your courage. I wish your husband a speedy release from prison, and I wish Russia to return to democratic values and the rule of law.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I am incredibly honored and deeply humbled by this recognition. Just like my husband, Vladimir Karamurza, 6 years ago when he received his Outstanding Russian Opposition Activist Award, I get to share this stage tonight with the most incredible, indomitable, fearless human rights fighters of the world. And I want to thank the Global Magnitsky Justice Campaign for its tireless efforts to honor that moral courage that time and again proves stronger than violence and aggression. I'm a very happy woman. I get to share my life with a man who possesses that kind of moral courage. A man who, having survived 2 assassination attacks and having been sentenced to 25 years of strict regime, continues being someone to whom decisions come easily because his values are clear. In one of his letters from prison, Vladimir wrote, "You do understand that I couldn't act differently, don't you?" And I do. I do understand they couldn't act differently for the same reason thousands and thousands of my compatriots, of Russian citizens, couldn't stay silent in the face of the aggressive war launched on Ukraine by the Russian state. One speech at the Municipal Council meeting cost Alexei Gorinov 7 years in prison. Olga Smirnova was sentenced to 6 years for calling the war on Ukraine a crime against humanity. Artyom Kamardin and Igor Shtovba are in jail for reading anti-war poetry at an anti-mobilization event in Moscow. Ilya Yashin received an 8.5-year prison sentence for posting videos condemning the war crimes committed by the Russian army in Ukraine, in Bucha. Today, Alexander Skochelenko, an artist and a pacifist, was sentenced to 7 years in prison for replacing price tags at a supermarket with anti-war messages. Alexei Moskalyov went to prison for refusing to condemn his 13-year-old daughter, Masha, for making an anti-war drawing at school. And every time I think of this loving father being deprived of the right to raise his daughter, I remember the words that Masha sent from the orphanage to her father in prison. "You are the best dad in the world. There is no one better than you. Please don't give up. You're a hero, my hero." This is why. This is why he couldn't act differently as a parent, as a mentor, as a citizen of his country. As Vladimir Kotlerov, a Russian musician and of course a foreign agent himself, put it, with a wet plastic bag on its head, with electroshock marks on its hands, my Russia is sitting in prison. I want to dedicate this distinction, this high distinction that I'm truly honored to receive tonight, to all those people who I'm proud to call my compatriots. People who, like my husband, cannot act differently despite the risks, who say no to the murderous regime of Vladimir Putin. And I truly believe that their awe-inspiring courage will yet again prove stronger than military might. And my courage, for the sake of my beloved husband, for the sake of all those people, and for the sake of my country, will continue, I hope, being that little voice that tells me at the end of each day, tomorrow you will try again. Or as Eleanor Roosevelt put it, just a step at a time, meeting each thing that comes up, discovering we have the strength to stare it down. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. I think it's worth mentioning that Vladimir used to be a fixture, didn't he, of the Magnitsky Awards, such a lovely presence, although I often found myself wanting to have a word with his tailor. Yeah. And it will be an enormous pleasure and privilege to invite him back here one year, as we surely will. We surely will. Time now for the outstanding political opposition figure, and the name of our presenter this evening was once, I think it's fair to say, known for rather different reasons from the reasons why it is known today. I speak of the renowned social and human rights defender Bianca Jagger, chair and founder of her own Human Rights Foundation, a member of or a Goodwill Ambassador for the Council of Europe, a member of the Executive Directors Leadership Council of Amnesty International USA, and a member of the 20th Century Task Force to apprehend war criminals. But tonight, as with everybody else in the room, a friend and a supporter of the Magnitsky Awards. And so to present the Outstanding Political Opposition Figure Award, please join me in welcoming to the stage Bianca Jagger.
I supported Bill Brower on his idea of the Magnitsky because I believe from the very first day that I listened to him that this was a really important and invaluable tool to apprehend and to bring to justice and to impose sanctions on war criminals. and on corrupt politicians. As some of you may know, I was born in Nicaragua, and I have been fighting the dictatorship of Daniel Ortega and Rosario Murillo. And tonight, I will be presenting an award to a dear friend who was in prison for 21 months and who was in house of arrest for 4 months. I would like as well just simply to say that perhaps in this scheme of things, when we are talking about Russia and Ukraine and many other countries, Nicaragua is a very small country that maybe you think doesn't deserve your attention. But it does. We are a people who are living under prison conditions in Nicaragua. And although I'm going to present this award to my dear friend, Felix Maradiaga, for outstanding political opposition figure, I would like for all of us to remember that in Nicaragua today, we have a bishop who has been sentenced to 26 years and 4 months simply for speaking on behalf of the people persecuted in Nicaragua and in defense of the Catholic Church. So it is my pleasure to call my dear friend, Felix Maradiaga, to the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear Bill, Bianca, colleagues, awardees, I'm deeply humbled and filled with enthusiasm to receive the Magnitsky Award. If someone had mentioned this opportunity just 7 months ago when I was in prison in Nicaragua, it would have been very hard to believe. As Bianca clearly said, this honor is not mine. It is shared with the thousands of Nicaraguans who have sacrificed their lives in the pursuit of freedom. It is dedicated to the nearly 1 million Nicaraguans in exile who, despite the distance, continue to dream in democracy and freedom, a dream that is elusive. As a kid, at my 12-year-old, I was a refugee abroad, and that's what I can speak in this beautiful language. Being displaced as an unaccompanied minor fleeing a war, who would say that my daughter Alejandra, at 6-year-old, will also become a displaced person? This award belongs to my colleague Angel Gaona, who worked with me and was killed while reporting during the protests in 2018. Belongs to Jason Salazar, Olesia, Victor Ticay, more than 90 other political prisoners, and of course to the bishop of my own diocese, Monsignor Rolando Alvarez, who is in prison simply for preaching justice and peace from the pulpit of the church. It belongs to the 11 Catholic missions expelled from Nicaragua, the 120 priests expelled from Nicaragua because of the religious persecution in the country. At just 10 years old, Alejandra had witnessed my survival of 2 assassination attempts, several months in the house arrest, 2 years in prison. And despite her innocence, Alejandra, just as the children of our dear friend Vladimir Caramurza, just as the children of Tulani Maseco, Alejandra has never questioned my decision. She has supported me. Alejandra knows that carrying the name Sergei Magnitsky in Nicaragua is something that will cause persecution. When we started with my political team to pursue justice against the criminal acts of Daniel Ortega, I was charged with treason, sentenced to 13 years in prison, accused for advocating against the regime precisely for trying to activate the Magnitsky laws. My journey into political activism is almost a necessity. I was an academic, I was a person working in disarmament affairs, working with the reinsertion of former combatants. But when you see the inhumane acts of Daniel Ortega and the many other dictators, there's nothing else that we could do. But on a final note, I would like to highlight a fundamental aspect of my work. From the beginning of my civic resistance and the work of my colleagues, we understood that Daniel Ortega is not a domestic problem. He's there because he received massive support from Vladimir Putin. He's there because he received massive support from Iran. So tackling corruption and the lack of democracy is not a local issue. Dictators work as an ecosystem. And we as freedom fighters, as people who believe in human dignity, have to work together. So I welcome the magnificent, amazing work that this foundation is doing. I also want to acknowledge the work that the World Liberty Congress is doing, Human Rights Foundation. I see my dear friend Thor here, who've also understood that we have to work together in the pursuit of freedom. I will also say that dictators want us to hate. They want to hold anger in our heart. But tonight we celebrate the name of a man that showed that through the pursuit of the rule of law, we're able to change the world. History is on our side. My dear friend Evgenia always remembers something, and I will just quote you, Evgenia, with your permission, when you remind us that your husband, as a historian, knows that history is on our side. Thank you, Bianca, for this honor. Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Felix. Thank you, Bianca. It is said, I am told, in Washington, D.C., that the longer your job description, the less important your job actually is. Our next presenter this evening is a rather glorious exception to that rule. Roger Carstens is the Special Presidential Envoy for Hostage Affairs at the U.S. Department of State. Brackets. I haven't introduced him yet, but thank you. Brackets and a retired US Army Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel. His job is to sit down with the really bad people and persuade them to release the good people. It's an extraordinary mission that he has set himself on, and it is a mark of his extraordinary skill set that he was one of the very, very few political appointees that President Joe Biden elected to keep from the previous administration, he who will not be named. Roger is here this evening to present an award to our outstanding young human rights activists.
James, thank you for that very kind and generous introduction. It's good to be here with you and with all of you at such an event of such great magnitude. It's really an honor to be here with so many incredible presenters, human rights defenders, activists, and journalists. And I count myself lucky to be with the people that I pretty much call my heroes. I'm also proud to celebrate and commemorate the courage and selflessness of Sergei Magnitsky and others who have been recognized as the standard bearers for human rights. We honor their sacrifices, their lives, and their families. Bill, I'd like to thank you as well and all that work with you for your role in keeping Sergei's torch lit, which I would say that this is an example of you doing so. Thank you for all that you do to promote this effort and to keep his memory alive. I think that we can always appreciate that you've created a substantial and sustained tribute to a person whose name is now recognized globally as that standard bearer for human rights. So again, I'm proud to be here. It's my great pleasure and honor to present the Magnitsky Prize for Outstanding Young Human Rights Activist to not one, but two deserving nominees. I hold Anais and Corinne Kanimba in the highest regard. These two young ladies put their lives on hold and dedicated themselves to the sole purpose of securing the freedom of their father, Paul Rusesabagina. He did the same for Anais and Corinne when brutal violence orphaned them as children. Anais and Corinne highly deserve this award for their relentless courage, and quest for justice for their father and for others without voices. They overcame incredible obstacles in amplifying their father's case, and uniquely, they showed resourcefulness by dividing and conquering, literally, by building up efforts to coalesce government support in both the United States and in Europe simultaneously. They engaged us in the U.S. Department of State and with members of U.S. congressional committees, ensuring all in the corridors of power felt the same sense of urgency that they did. They were tough on me. They were tough on my team. They pushed us and demanded our very best efforts in bringing their father home. And I want to honor Paul Rusesabagina, sir. It's good to have you home. Sir, your daughters, they were tough on me, they pushed me hard, and I loved every minute of it. Because I'm grateful that they did, because it helped get the job done. I'm fortunate to serve on a team of like-minded colleagues who believe, like I do, that private citizens should expect their governments to seek justice, and these governments should be willing to take decisive, concerted action to address injustice. So Anais and Karine, I salute your courage. I commend your perseverance and resourcefulness, and I thank you for allowing us to partner with you on your important mission. It's my pleasure to present you the Magnitsky Prize for Outstanding Young Human Rights Activist.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. To begin with, Ambassador Carstens may be the special presidential envoy for hostage affairs, but for our family and for many people in our community of loved ones who's been away and who's in prison, he's Captain America, and he up. So it doesn't have to be so long. It's a true honor for us to be here, standing here today with you, along our dad and our entire family and our support team, to be honored here and to be recognized, because we could not have done this by ourselves. We can only stand here because all of you here have joined us in the fight for justice for my father. Our life began, our story with our father really began, as you know, in 1994, after we lost our parents during the genocide. We became orphaned, and yet we felt loved. We felt love from our parents, Paul Rusesabagina and Tatiana Rusesabagina. They raised us, they gave us everything that we could ever think as children, until, unfortunately, he was taken from us. Our dad was taken from us, and we realized that we could not do anything instead, stand still. And that's how we had to learn and join this community and figure out how to get him released. In those days, we didn't know where to start. We knocked on many doors. The very, very first door was Captain America's door. He welcomed us in, and after that, we had to go other places around too. And we found ourselves in the United Kingdom, where we met Bill Browder. And he told us one important thing, is that even if you think that everything is beyond you and you cannot do anything, do not forget that you have power. You have power to press at least 3 times a day, to put pressure where you can, and to get everyone behind you in a way that can help them and help your father in going further. And in these days, so we, together with Bill Browder and Baroness Kennedy, we used the tools in front of us to put the pressure. And we went to the House of Lords, and we had the chance to testify and to also tell them about our father's situation. And it's in this moment that we saw that when we get together and we use the tools that we have together and we communicate with them, we can have the support of others, and many of you here were with us. And so we actually were able to have the Magnitsky sanctions called on the person who was behind my father's kidnapping and who's currently the ambassador of Rwanda here in the United Kingdom. And this pressure that we put together among everybody else together, we were able to have our dad with us, and we're very truly, truly, truly thankful.
We would also like to thank Baroness Helena Kennedy, whose support and help made all the difference in being able to put the pressure necessary to get Paul Kagame to release our father. We're also incredibly grateful to our amazing lawyers, Kate Gibson and Ryan Fahey, whose compassion, dedication to justice gave us the courage and the strength. They stood by our side every step of the way, and we look up to them. They are superheroes. We continue to be inspired by the people in this room. We continue to be encouraged by the dedication to justice, to human rights, to democracy. These are the principles that keep us going. These are the principles that we are all gathered here today to stand for. And in the spirit of the Magnitsky Justice Campaign, in the spirit of our collective efforts and coming together to stand for justice, we will prevail. Our father is a testament to this collective effort. He's here with us today, and we are incredibly grateful to everyone here who made it possible. Thank you.
I think I have to mention, I apologize, well, I don't apologize actually, the regime from which Anais and Corinne, with the help of Roger, secured their father's release after he had been kidnapped and after he had been tortured, remains the regime into whose hands the current UK government are desperate to deliver refugees and asylum seekers with no prospect of return. Some food for thought for some people in the room tonight, perhaps. Our next presenter of an award, I mean, this is such a cliche at award ceremonies, but he really does need no introduction, not least because he has been correctly name-checked and honoured by every single individual on the stage tonight. Some things you may not know about Bill Browder. His grandfather was the founder of the Communist Party in the United States of America. True? True. The Hollywood version of his memoir, really, Red Notice, is just constantly about to be greenlit, constantly about to be made, and I'm told that Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, is due to play Bill. Not true. He has worked, as you know, tirelessly since 2008, when Sergei Magnitsky, his lawyer, uncovered an enormous fraud committed by Russian government officials that involved the theft of $230 million US. And as we have touched upon this evening, the scale of the mountain, the size, the height of the mountain that he set himself the lifelong task of climbing was inconceivable. And while he may never reach the top, Vladimir Putin may go to his grave without ever facing justice, I can tell you now, and I can tell you that most people in this room know, that Bill Browder will never stop climbing. And tonight he will present the award for Human Rights Defender, and this is a Lifetime Achievement Award.
So I meet a lot of people in the world of human rights, and there's a lot of great people, and a lot of politicians and activists and NGOs that have been incredibly helpful and effective. But tonight I want to focus on one in particular, a person who's also been name-checked very recently, who I think that almost everybody who's got a problem in this room would have gone to her at one time or another, and that is Baroness Helena Kennedy, KC. She's been helping out with the Vladimir Kara-Murza case with Yevgenia. She's been helping out with the Jimmy Lai case, which you're going to hear more about tonight. She helped the Paul Rusesabagina case. She works to defend Yazidi women who have been taken hostage. She's been working with the Belarusian opposition, working for media freedom, and I could go on and on and on. But there's one particular story which moved me especially. And I was very tangentially involved, but I got to see it firsthand how she worked. And that was after the fall of Afghanistan, I should say before the fall of Afghanistan, Helena had been very active in helping promote female judges to the bar. So it wasn't just a male bar, but there would be women on the bar. And we had the withdrawal of the American forces and the British forces, and then, of course, the Taliban took over. And there was all sorts of revenge going around, but there was particular revenge against judges that put Taliban in prison, and particular revenge against female judges. They were some of the most vulnerable people in the country. And Helena, who had some part in helping promote them, felt a personal responsibility for trying to save them. Now, I know many people who watch these terrible things going on in the world and say, God, that's really terrible, I feel bad about that. But Helena had all those thoughts and said, I'm going to do something about that. And so from London, she first said, we need to get some planes. And she said, well, to get planes, you need money. And so she started calling up every person she knew and every other person she didn't know and said, we need to evacuate these female judges and their families. And through the sheer force and determination, she was able to gather up literally millions of dollars to charter planes, to organize private security, mercenaries to get these people out. But then once you had the planes and the money, you needed to have some place for the planes to fly to. Nobody wanted them. And so she then started calling up everybody she knew in the world of foreign diplomacy, and was somehow able to twist the arm of the Greek foreign minister to take all of these people. And he said, I can't take them permanently, but I'll take them temporarily. So she found a place for them to go. And so in an operation which was equivalent to Argo, the movie, she was able to evacuate more than 500 Afghans, 102 judges and their family members, from Afghanistan to Greece. And then from Greece, she was able to then get on the phone to foreign ministers of Canada, Ireland, Iceland, Australia, the UK, and resettle all these people. And there's an expression, it's both in the Talmud and the Quran, which is that to save a life is to save everybody. And I think Helena Kennedy has saved truly everybody by saving these 500 people, and she deserves this award in a profound and sincere way. Congratulations, Helena.
Well, you know, I really do feel that I'm an unworthy recipient of this, because people always ask you, you know, why and how did you become a human rights lawyer? And the truth is that we learn about human rights, really, from our clients, from the people that we spend time with and whose pain we see firsthand, whose suffering we get to really know. And so I really don't feel deserving of any kind of award. Bill Browder deserves awards. But the truth is that when you've been involved in something where you were trying to encourage a place that had rid itself of the Taliban and they were trying to build a democracy, was that I was one of the voices that was trying to persuade the forces that were opening up law and setting up a bar association in Afghanistan. I wanted to see women being able to get into the law schools. I wanted to see women being able to get into the courts, and for there to be women's courts, because it was unlikely that women would go with their stories of abuse in the home, of child marriages, of trafficking, of rape, of having your children taken from you. The terrible stories of women in Afghanistan, but in so many parts of the world. And I got to know some of those women judges. And when, in the beginning of the year of the evacuations, the military evacuations, in the January of that year, 2 women on the Supreme Court were assassinated. And every judge, every woman judge, knew that it was a warning to them of what was going to happen if the Taliban got in. And so it's no wonder that they were in terror when it did actually happen. And so we at the Institute of Human Rights, that I'm now the director of, Evelina, who's here, Emily, who worked with me, the 2 wonderful young women lawyers, and we really were receiving calls that were desperate, because those women knew that they had a target on their backs, and we had to do something. So I don't feel that this was something that was, you know, about me. It was about people coming together. And doing the work that I do, I meet the most wonderful people. And many of them are in this room. Many incredible people. And many incredible lawyers. And so I just wanted to make a mention of lawyering. Lawyers get a bad name. And you'll say they deserve it. And all I can say to you is that law matters. And the rule of law matters. And the whole business of protecting people and trying to leverage law, but also recognizing that law can be used to persecute people, to do criminal things to people, to criminalize those who are not criminals. And so the importance of having lawyers working in this space and really championing good law and the rule of law worldwide and making sure that there is respect for law is vitally important. And so I see myself as somebody who is part of something bigger, and there are lawyers in this room, and mention has been made of Kate, and there's Keelan Gallagher and Jonathan Price, and just whole sets of lawyers who do fantastic work. And so sometimes we just have to give a shout for the lawyers too. And I just want to thank all of you, but I particularly want to thank Bill Browder. Bill is a mentor in many ways, because I know that if I phone him and I say to him, I'm trying to get these women out, I'm managing to get some money together, but should I go public or not? Because I didn't want to be making a noise about it. And he said, if you don't tell that story, you won't get the money that you need. And he's always been there advising, and I want to thank him, because he's a truly remarkable, remarkable man. And he's the person who deserves honors. Bill.
Baroness Helena Kennedy there, literally the only person in the room who feels that she doesn't deserve an award tonight. We come next to the award for our outstanding human rights activist. And it occurred to me on the stage this evening that we find ourselves in the remarkable but in many ways utterly inevitable position of celebrating some Magnitsky Award winners who have been in jail, while also recognizing some previous Magnitsky Award winners who have since gone to jail. I can think of no better illustration of how high the stakes are in these matters and how important the work is of the people that we both honor and invite to the stage to bestow those honors. And our presenter of the Outstanding Human Rights Activist Award is a politician who finds herself in the eye of a hideous storm. Kira Rudik is the leader of the Golos Liberal political party in Ukraine and a vice president of the Alliance and Liberal Democrats for Europe. She has, it says in my notes that she's number 2 on the list of most promising Ukrainian politicians. I don't know who's number 1, and I don't care. Because Kira has dedicated herself to seeking the delivery of the assets. The Magnitsky Acts specialize in the freezing of assets. What Kira spotted was the opportunity to transfer some of those funds into places where they can do most good. And she has pretty much from the moment that Putin's troops set their sights on Kyiv, she has dedicated herself to trying to persuade international governments that the $350 million or so of Russian central bank reserves it's $1 billion, sorry. I'm going to sack my sub-editor, Kira. It's the $1 billion of reserves that are currently being held by Western governments should in fact be making their way to the government of Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage Kira Rudik.
It's a pleasure and privilege to be speaking in front of you. Well, at the start of my speech, I need to clarify that it is 350 billion that we are after. Well, because it's like personal offensive. We are after a huge amount of money that Putin saved in the democratic countries and that belong right now to everybody that he hurt. And it's only a fair and true thing to do is to make sure that we take use of those money. But back to why am I here? You know, it's always an impossible thing for me to range the crimes that Russians committed to people of our country on the terror level scale. But there are people who can do that, and they are called International Criminal Court, and that's why they have proven a crime by Putin and issued a warrant for his arrest for specific and horrifying crime. It is kidnapping 300,000 of Ukrainian children and transferring them over to Russia. I cannot imagine pain and fear and suffering that these children and their families are going through. It is just impossible. And the worst thing is that we have no way of getting them back. Well, most of us, because there is one who can. Mykola Kuleba and his team have rescued and returned 204 kids from Russia and temporarily occupied territories back to Ukraine to reunite them with their families and loved ones. When I'm thinking about 204 kids, I imagine them in the room like this. So you can imagine how cheerful and loud that room would be. Like the home that is blessed of having children would be noisy and cheerful and happy. And right now, when I'm asking Mikola and everybody with him to join me on this stage, I imagine those kids in this huge room cheering for him and applauding to him.
Good evening, friends, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor to be in here, but first of all, thank you, Sergey. I know you here and listening us, and Vladimir, Bill, Evgenia, and everybody who are paying a high price just for being here. And you know, I was listening and I thought, God, who I am in comparison with Sergey, Vladimir, with that ones who are tortured, imprisoned, kidnapped, deported, and how many children suffer. It's very mixed feelings because just yesterday we returned 2 more orphans who've been kidnapped, and just yesterday 1 foster family who fostered 1 boy, and he was a soldier in the Ukrainian army. And I found him 25 years ago on the streets because I started my career as in child protection 25 years ago, being on the streets collecting kids from the basements of buildings. It was thousands of children who lived there, and it was one of boys who are rescued and restored and placed to this foster family of my friends, and yesterday he was killed on the battlefield. But 2 orphans were returned. I hate that regime. Which kills our children, which destroying their identity. We have to be strong. We have to move ahead. We have to not give up. We have to fight against pure evil, which trying to re-educate, indoctrinate, and erase identity of Ukrainian children. And it's a privilege for me to stand in here with my friends, because Ksenia and Nastya, it is the voices of children who've been kidnapped. They've been returned, but they are ready to fight for another who are staying there. And I remember just one story. They may be telling their stories. One 12-year-old boy, because you've seen that photos, and always I'm asking kids who've been returned, what is the highest impression and what highlighted? And everybody is crying and telling when we cross the border. And I asking them, did you afraid that we'll never come back? And many children say, yeah, we're afraid we thought that we will never come back. And I can imagine if my child cannot sleep at night, be separated with me in any country, and somebody try to indoctrinate and dreaming about escape. But I asked 12 years boy who will return. I remember how mother and grandmother were crying and begging me to return this child. And this 12 years boy, when I asked him, did you dream about your escape? He told, yeah, I was sure. I was sure I'll come back. I told, how? I planned my escape. Okay, how did you do this? I told, I planned, but only one thing stopped me. I planned how to cross the minefields. What did you do? I was planning. I had a plan how to cross the minefields on the front line. And it's hard to believe. It's hard to imagine how this child couldn't sleep at night and was planning how to cross the minefields. Our kids is brave. And I know that Ksenia and Anastasia is nervous, and I ask you support them now.
Вітаю.
Hello,
Мене звати Мотчак Анастасія.
my name is Anastasia Movchak.
Мені 16, і я з Херсона.
I am 16 years old and I'm from the city of Kherson.
Під час окупації мене вивезли до табору в Крим.
During the occupation of Kherson, I was taken to a camp in Crimea.
Там мені довелося провести 4 місяці без рідних і без можливості повернутися додому.
There I had to spend 4 months without relatives and without an opportunity to go back home.
У таборі нас змушували вчити та співати гімн Росії.
In the camp, we were forced to learn and to sing the anthem of Russia.
А якщо ми відмовлялися, нас сварили.
If we refused, we were punished.
Нам не дозволяли розмовляти українською мовою.
We were forbidden to speak Ukrainian.
Якщо ми якось показували, що ми українці, нас ображали і казали, що ми фашисти.
If I somehow showed that I was Ukrainian, I was insulted and was called a fascist.
Та що українська армія обстрілює мирні міста.
And that the Ukrainian army was shelling peaceful cities.
А з вихователів ніхто не намагався знайти спосіб, щоб повернути нас додому.
The administration did not try to return us home.
Натомість вони хотіли залишити нас та зробити росіянами.
Instead, they wanted to leave us and make us Russians.
З мого перебування в таборі я винесла, що в Росії чи на окупованій території ти не маєш прав.
From my stay in the camp, I learned that in Russia or in the occupied territories, you have no rights.
Ти не можеш просто бути українцем чи любити свою Україну.
You cannot just be Ukrainian or love Ukraine.
Ти зобов'язан прославляти Росію і бути російською дитиною.
You're obliged to glorify Russia and be a Russian child.
Я щаслива, що повернулася додому і хочу, щоб всі українські діти також повернулися.
I am happy to return home and I wish all our children to return as well.
Дякую.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ksenia Koldin. I am 19 years old and I have a younger brother, 12 years old, Sergei. And we are the children without parents. After the Russians invaded, my brother and I were sent to Russia. I ended up in a technical school and my brother was taken to a summer camp. 2 weeks turned into 9 months of separation. I started looking for ways to return. I promised myself that I wouldn't not live without my brother. The Russians put pressure on Sergei, convincing him that no one needed him, that he wouldn't not return to Ukraine, because there was a war and Nazis there. I was told that he doesn't want to go with me and prefers to stay in Russia. After such words, I gathered my will into a first. I managed to speak with him, and eventually he agreed to come with me. After several days of exhausting travel, constant integration, and fear that we will not be allowed to go home and will be forced to live in Russia, we reached Ukraine. But despite all the horrors and traumas, I believe in the victory of Ukraine. I believe that all children will return to their family and that Russia must be punished for its crimes. So that this country will no longer be able to steal Ukrainian children and turn them into Russians. Thank you.
You know, it is the first time they are on the stage. It is the first time when she speaks English. Yeah, I'm amazed. And they prepared a gift for Bill. Bill, please come on the stage. This Ukrainian flag was painted by kids who've been returned, especially for you.
Wow. I think someone must be chopping onions just to the left of this. Either that or I've got something in my eye tonight. Thank you so much, all of you. That was extraordinary. And a timely reminder of why we're all here tonight. We come now to the part of the evening that always assumes particular poignancy. We come to the part of the evening where the recipients of the awards are not able to be with us. And we begin with the award for Outstanding Journalist. To present it, a former leader of the Conservative Party and a former Secretary of State for Work and Pensions here in the United Kingdom, but also a politician who, when it comes to Russia and to China, has sometimes, in opposition to his own colleagues, has managed to be on the right side of history. Please join me in welcoming to the stage to present this year's Magnitsky Award for Outstanding Journalism, Sir Ian Duncan Smith.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, I'm here tonight as part of a group struggle, and I want to say something in defense of lawyers, Elena. I'd like a shout out for the Doughty Street team that has been fantastic in defending Mumilaya. I'm here to award, as has just been said, an award to somebody who can't collect it, and in a sense will be collected by somebody very close, and I'll come to that in a second. But I want to say right now that I think that we here in the free world face almost the most dangerous time that we have since the Cold War. All around us, states are turning to authoritarianism. They are abusing any freedoms and the legal rights that go with that. And we are watching an axis of authoritarianism build across and in front of us now at the apex of which is China, North Korea, Russia. You've got all the stuff that's going on through Iran and into the Middle East and Syria. And we can watch that happen, but we watch the human tragedy that takes place while we do that. Because in all of that, as you've heard, we've all heard tonight, is the issue of what happens to people who simply want to live their lives in freedom and defended by the rule of law, which we take for granted here, but which has been stripped away from them in far too many places. So tonight, sometimes I think when we look out there and we think that things are so bad that there is next to nothing that we can perhaps do about it, great states, powerful, moneyed, with full militaries, crushing and leaning down on them, committing genocide, committing organ harvesting, trashing other people's arrangements, and dangerously threatening to invade other states. And sometimes we can be excused, I suppose, for thinking that who are we going to be able to do anything about it? And in that dark horizon, suddenly you see little points of light that begin to shine brighter. They're not countries, they're not even groups of people. They are individuals who stand out against that tyranny, and which, Bill, you so epitomize yourself and this wonderful setup that you have created here tonight. And the one that I'm here tonight to celebrate, and I want all of us obviously to celebrate with me, that point of light is a man who, when the agreement between Britain and China was signed, sealed, and delivered, that gave freedoms into people of Hong Kong to live their lives in a way with justice and the potential of democracy. This individual, whilst being highly successful at business, then realized that there was more to it than that, and that he should stand for the freedoms which were being chiseled away. And then, of course, the Chinese regime decided finally it had enough of this debate about democracy and decided to trash that and impose a national security law which would allow them to arrest and persecute anybody they wish to over any length of time. Jimmy Lai could have fled Hong Kong. Jimmy Lai could have gone somewhere else. Jimmy Lai was encouraged to leave because they all knew, and he knew, that he was the target if the Chinese authorities had their chance. And in reality, he chose not to, because he felt that he owed leadership and support to the many that wouldn't be able to leave, and he had to stand with them. That sacrifice comes to the very heart of what freedom is all about, when you are ready to give yours up so that others may well be inspired to fight on. Jimmy is lucky, fortunate, because he has a wonderful son called Sebastian Lai. And Sebastian has never stopped trying desperately to change things. And I have one comment to make, Sebastian. What a wonderful and proud father Jimmy must be to see what you are doing to try and save him and save the others as well. But I want to say that my government still refuses to accept that Jimmy Lai is a British citizen with a British passport. Shame on them for failing to stand with him in his hour of need. We have that little book that's supposed to protect us wherever we go. He is not a dual national. He is a British citizen. And all he wants, knowing full that he may never see the light of day again, is to be proclaimed under those freedoms a British citizen. And that's what he in reality is. Sebastian, please come up and collect that award.
Hello. On behalf of my father and my family, I would like to thank the Global Magnitsky Justice Campaign for this award. When my father was first arrested, letters were sent to him by his colleagues. One of them said, "Mr. Lai, thank you for letting us live this dream of democracy." A son spends his whole life trying to understand his father. Mine gave up everything in defense of an ideal. Someone once told me that you don't become a journalist, you are born one. I think that's the same for an activist. Most people can see when something is wrong. Many of us would like to think that we would do the right thing in that situation and work to correct it. But only few of us ever do. Being an activist is a paradox. You fight for your home, and by doing so, you forsake the chance of going back. You pursue the freedom of others and put yours on the line. You are a patriot that is labeled a traitor. From the day Dad landed in Hong Kong as a child stowaway at the age of 12, my father spent his youth in pursuit of personal and financial freedom. He has now sacrificed all those liberties to fight for freedom of the people of Hong Kong. I don't know how much longer my father will spend in prison, or how many years it will be before I see him again. Every day my father is in jail shows the hypocrisy of the Hong Kong government. It shows the importance of the very freedom that my father campaigned for. It shows government officials living in lie, peddling a fabricated version of liberty that they have no say in, while imprisoning people like my father who live in truth, authentic to themselves. I don't know what the fight looks like ahead, or how close or far away we are from the goalposts. What I know is that Dad is doing the courageous thing, and he is doing the right thing. They can lock up my father, but they can't lock up the ideals he is fighting for. Now, maybe the fate of Hong Kong was always to become a autocracy, to be oppressed. But while people like my father continue to stand up for democracy, a better future is never far away. Thank you.
Sebastian has no way of knowing whether his father knows what he is doing for him. Something perhaps to take home this evening. The next award is for the outstanding lawyer of, well, we've already met loads. This is, obviously the pressure is on now. The outstanding lawyer award this year will be given by a stalwart of the Magnitsky Awards. I speak of a man who began advocating for human rights in 1989 as a schoolboy in London, organising opposition to apartheid in South Africa. Thor Halvorson went on to found the Human Rights Foundation in the spring of 2005. Its mission, as many of you here this evening will know, is to unite activists from across the world to stand up to tyranny everywhere. A founder of the Oslo Freedom Forum, the annual global conference series that brings together human rights defenders from around the world to speak, as Jimmy Lai would appreciate more than almost anybody else, to speak truth to power. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage this year's presenter of the Outstanding Lawyer Award, Thor Halvorson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My friend Thulani Maseko had a wicked sense of humor. And given that this is the last award to be presented this evening, he would probably say something like, "This is the only award before you get a bathroom break." He would probably then add something like, "Henry VIII probably said what I tell you now to his wives. I won't keep you very long." 300 days ago, my friend Thulani Maseko was at home on his family farm in Swaziland. Thulani loved his goats and his chickens, but he wasn't a farmer. He was a highly effective anti-corruption crusader and human rights lawyer who used the instruments of law to fight injustice. He was a romantic. He used these instruments inside a dictatorship. I had the privilege of getting to know Thulani when the government of the dictator of Swaziland put him in prison for simply practicing law in a very simple case involving a ticket, a traffic ticket. He represented the person who gave the traffic ticket to a high court judge. The high court judge wanted his car released. And the person who gave the ticket, clearly a romantic, said no. So they put him and they put his lawyer, Thulani, in prison. In Thulani's case, in leg irons, in solitary confinement, with a punishment that is more than 100 years old, leg irons. And it took an international campaign to achieve his liberation. He continued his work, undaunted, continuing to use the law to hold his own government accountable, to force the King of Swaziland and his government to play by their own rules. A humble and courageous lawyer, he was at home 300 days ago this evening, and he was watching a football match between two South African teams. He was with his wife, Tanele, who has been his partner of 16 years, and a part and parcel of every case and every initiative that he was involved with. He was with his two sons, Gosenthe and Gosvile, 10 and 7 years old. A hired assassin working on direct orders of King Mzwati approached the house, and through a window, he shot Thulani in the head, with his children and wife next to him. That political murder ended the life of my dear friend. Tonight, I'm extraordinarily grateful to you for honoring him. His wife is here to not just collect this award, but to continue his legacy. I ask you to please welcome Tanele Maseko.
Ambassadors, government ministers, my lords, my ladies, and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Tanele Maseko, and I come from Swaziland, Africa's last absolute monarch. My late husband, human rights lawyer, used the law as a tool to fight this horrible dictator. Thulani was committed to social justice. He was committed to fight for democracy in Swaziland. Like many amongst you today, you are here alive. You're with your families. Unfortunately, I had to pick up my husband's brain mass. I had to pick up his skull. And my 2 young boys, we had to try and resuscitate him back to life. He was cold. For merely seeking justice, the horrible dictator shot him dead in front of me and my 2 young boys. I am humbled to stand before you today and very grateful to Bill for this prestigious award. And in that shallow grave, my dearest husband, Thulani, the world remembers you. But I'm also receiving this award, and I want you to allow me to launch the Justice for Thulani campaign, where we will seek accountability for his death. And I also want to plead with you to support and stand with us in solidarity as the Thulani Maseko Foundation to continue to seek for democracy in Swaziland, to continue to fight for those honest civilians who continue to walk with bullets in their bodies. I plead with you, our friends, to continue to highlight the gross human rights violations that continue to happen in Swaziland. No amount of prison, certainly no amount of death, will silence us. We will continue to fight for democracy. We will continue to fight for human rights. We shall never surrender. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage our host this evening and the inspiration in every way for everything that we have heard so far, Bill Browder.
All I can say is, wow, those stories. It's just hard to even digest all that tragedy, bravery, inspiration. The one thing I can say is that many of us in this room are fighting different battles, and when we're fighting these battles, we feel alone, we feel lonely, we feel isolated. Often a David versus Goliath. We're the Davids. But when we all gather here together, we don't feel so alone. And each of us gives the other inspiration. And I hope that hearing these stories tonight, you'll feel that inspiration. And those of you who are fighting won't feel so alone. And I thank you all for coming tonight. I look forward to seeing you next year. And thank you very much.